Ready to go.
Morning.
Morning.
I'm David Beerman, and I'm doing a presentation on the Central Processing Unit this morning. Starting off with a brief history and background. I'm going to skip that. The definition of operation. The CPU is the central brain that helps the computer carry out programs by engaging mathematical, logical, and input-output operations of the system. And this term has been used at least since the early 60s. And the two main components of the CPU are the arithmetic logic unit, or the ALU, which performs arithmetic and logical operations, and the control unit, which is the CU, which takes from the memory and decodes and executes the information using the ALU when necessary. Though the ways CPUs have changed in size and construction are enormous since the 50s, the basic design and function haven't. In the operation, there are 4 steps nearly all CPUs use: the fetch, decode, execute, and write back. In the fetch mode, the CPU retrieves information, which is a number or a sequence of numbers, from the program memory. The program counter, the PC, determines the CPU's location or address. It does this by storing numbers which identify the address of the next instruction to be fetched. After this is done, the PC is incremented in the length of the instruction in terms of memory units. In the decode step, the instruction is broken down into significant parts to other portions of the CPU. The way the numerical instruction value is interpreted is defined by the CPU's instruction set architecture, ISA. This is a part of the computer's architecture related to the programming, including the nature of data types, the native data types, instructions, registers, addressing nodes, memory architecture, interrupt and exception handling, and external input-output, which is communication between the computer and the outside world, a person or another computer. Inputs are signals or data received by the system. Outputs are signals or data sent from them. The ISA includes a specification of a set of opcodes, which is machine language, which are a set of instructions executed directly by the CPU. After the fetch and decode steps, the execute step is performed. This means various parts of the CPU are connected so they can perform the desired operation. If an additional operation is requested, the ALU will become attached to a set of inputs and outputs. The input is to provide a number to be added. The output's the final sum. If the operation provides a result too large for the CPU chamber, say 1 to the 100,000th power, an alternate overflow flag in the flag registers may be set. The final step is the write back. It simply writes back the results of the executive step to some form of memory. Some types of instructions manipulate the program, counter rather than directly produce results data. They are generally called jumps and cause behavior like loops, which is a series of statements specified once but may be carried out several times in succession, and functions or subroutines, sequences of program instruction that perform specific functions packaged as units. These units can then be used in programs whenever the particular task should be performed. After the instructions are executed and written back, the entire process repeats with the next instruction cycle, normally fetching the next in-sequence instructions because of the increased value in the program counter. For example, if the instruction was a jump, the counter will be modified to contain the address of the jumped instructions, and the program execution will continue on normally. If more complex CPUs or CISC, complex instruction set computing, multiple instructions can be fetched, decoded, and executed simultaneously. The alternative of this is the RISC, or the reduced instruction set computing, a design that simplifies performance to enable much faster execution of each instruction. Now the design information. The basic concept CPU is a list of basic operations or instruction set. The CPU performs is hardwired into this design. Add, subtract, comparing numbers, or just jump into different parts of the program. And each operation is represented by a particular sequence of bits, or the opcode, which is the machine language. When a particular opcode is sent to the CPU, it will perform the operation represented by that code. A computer program is a sequence of instructions that can, with each instruction, including an opcode and that operation's arguments. The AOU performs the actual mathematical operations for each instruction. In addition to using the AOU to perform its functions, the CPU is also responsible for reading its next instruction from memory, reading data specific in arguments, and writing results to memory from memory. And the control unit. The control unit controls communication and coordination between input and output devices. It reads and interprets instructions and determines the sequence for processing the data. It directs two operations of the other units by providing timing and control signals, and all computer resources are managed by the control unit. It directs the flow of data between the CPUs and the other devices. It was historically defined as one distinct part of the 1946 reference model of von Neumann architecture. In modern computer designs, the control unit is typically an internal part of the CPU with its overall role in operation unchanged. We've got a couple of, there's some, that's microprocessor. I read the multi-core processors. They are a single computing component with two or more independent actual CPUs. This allows the multiple cores to do instructions at the same time, increasing the speed for programs ready to be compatible to parallel computing, which is the same as simultaneous computing. They started in the late 2000s by Intel, AMD, and others. Just as with single processors, multi-cores may implement architectures such as SIMD or single instruction multiple data. They can do simultaneous computations, but only a single process at a given moment. VLIW, very long instructional word, it can execute instructions at the same time. Vector processing, SIMD is an example, or multi-threading, the ability of a program or operating system to manage its use by more than one user at a time, and even manage multiple requests by the same user without having the multiple copies of programming running in the computer. While technology is reducing the size of individual gates, physical limits of semiconductor-based microelectronics have become a major design concern. Advantages and disadvantages. Integration of multi-core chips significantly improves performance between the CPUs. The signal travels shorter distance, therefore those signals degrade less. They require much less printed circuit board, PCB space, than multi-chip SMP designs, or symmetric multiprocessing. Two or more identical processors connect to a single shared main memory, have full access to input-output devices, and are controlled by a single operating system instance that treats all processors equally, reserving none for special purposes. But the disadvantages are that the integration of these same chips drives chip production yields down, and they are more difficult to manage thermally than lower density single chip designs. Embedded designs. As of 2010, multi-core network processing devices have become mainstream. Texas Instruments has a 3-core TMS 320 C6488 and 4-core TMS 320 C5441. Freescale has a 6-core MSC 8156. Both have stated they are working on an 8-core processor. I've been told that big business had gotten up to 16-core processors, but there's only so much time in this presentation, so I can't get into that. Now into the history. The CPU basically started in the 70s when a small unknown company called Intel, short for Integrated Electronics, combined multiple transistors from the central processing unit, a chip called the Intel 4004. In November 1971, Intel publicly announced the world's first single processor microprocessor chip, the Intel 4004. It had a speed of 108 kilohertz and contained 2,300 transistors. In comparison, Intel's latest processor, the P6, runs at 133 megahertz and contains 5.5 million transistors. we've got some examples of some processor chips. In 1979, the first processor used by the original IBM, PC, and XI personal computers was the 8088 Intel. 1987, July, Spark Sun Microsystems released the Scalable Processor Architecture processor. It used RISC, reduced instruction set, to speed up processing. 8 years later, Spark workstations and servers dominated their market with SuperSpark and UltraSpark processors. In 1988, PowerPC 601 IBM Motorola, in 2 years, spawned the world's most popular RISC platform, the Power Macintosh. In 1995, AMD AM5 x86, the chip that put AMD on the map as official Intel competition. 1995, 6x86 series Cyrix. Cyrix by this time was a major player in the alternative processor market. They've been around since 1992 with the release of the 986 SLC. By 1995, they had their own 5x86 processor, considered the only real competition to AMD counterpart. They released their 6x86 in 1995. It was designed to go head-to-head with Intel's Pentium processor. Dubbed the M1, it contained 2 super pipeline integer units on die, FPU, or floating point unit, and 16 kilobytes of write-back cache. It used many internal techniques as Intel and AMD chips to increase performance. Cyrix had a reputation of lagging in the area of performance. The M1 was no exception. The chip had a weaker FPU than both AMD and Intel, meaning it could not keep up with the competition in areas such as 3D gaming or other mathematic-intense software. On top of that, the chip had a reputation of running hot. Users had to get CPU fans to keep these hot processors cool enough to run stably. Cyrix tried to combat this issue with a 6x86L processor. This low-power processor made use of a split voltage, 3.3 volts for input-output, and 2.8 volts internal. That's my presentation for you.
Hey guys, I'm Beerman. Welcome to another video. So let's start. What is CPU? CPU is a central processing unit. Everyone knows that, so I'm not talking about it. So let's move to other slide. CPU used in your computer, your calculator, your mobile phone, car, toys, and lot of components. And in CPU have main 3 parts. Okay. The first one is the CU, that means the control unit. The second one is the ALU, that means the arithmetic logic unit. And the third one is the memory. Let's talk about each and everything, what is happening there. What are these? In ALU, it's done a lot of calculation. That is the part of the calculation, every single calculation in your CPU. And the registry and the cache that are in the memory. The memory location built right into your chipset, in CPU chipset. And it is really fast. It's not like your DDR2, DDR3 memory. It's really fast. But the capacity is too low capacity. Around cache is around 2 MB. Sometimes they are 12 MB, but 2 MB now the newer i3 process having 256K. So in the CU is control every single thing in your computer, like the input devices, output devices, everything is controlled by the CU. The processors, most of people know about the process, the AMD and the Intel, but there are other processor types like Apple G4 process, Sun processor, and Motorola processors, and there are some other processors. They are not famous, but like a VIA, I am not including it. So that it. You don't want to worry about it, just want to remember about the three part about the ALU, CU, and the memory. That is the thing you have to remember. So thank you for watching my video. Have a nice day.
I like to move it.
Any questions? That concludes my presentation.